This is part 4 of the 023 MS 230 rebuild, and last time we ended up talking about the oil pump, which is here, so we'll just zoom in and continue with that. So here's the oil pump just in there, and it fits in the plastic housing, and the oil is supplied from the oil tank here through this bit of a manifold. So let's just have a look at the oil pump drive. Right, here's the old crank, the one with the worn out big end, but it's perfect for our purposes. So this is the clutch side, that's the flywheel side. So we have this circlip here, and the circlip is there to prevent this worm drive from damaging the oil seal. So that worm there drives the little gear on the oil pump. Then what we've got is we have an oil pump guard that goes on there that has escaped me at the moment, and then on the outside of that, with a left hand thread, we have the centrifugal clutch. Then on the outside of that we have a bearing. Now there's quite a good rant about these bearings on the 026 MS 260 rebuild. I think it's part 6B, so go and have a look at that, but basically you've got to put some grease on that when you're putting it together. And then on the oil pump drive there is a quill type thing. It's a bit of bent metal sticking out, bent wire, and there's a notch on the clutch drum, and the notch locates with that drive quill. Effectively what it means is that when the clutch is expanded, when the saw is revving, the clutch drum drives the oil pump, and when it's when the saw is ticking over and there's a resistance to the clutch drum from the chain on the bar, then the oil pump doesn't drive, because the centrifugal clutch is just spinning inside the drum. Hopefully that makes some sense. Have a look at part 6B and that will fill in some finer details. So there we go. Right, on with the oil pump. So we located the oil pump, but I'm not going to use this body. I'm going to use another one, so we can take it apart without any fuss. We're going to use this one, rebuild this one, so no point taking it apart. So here we are, there's the oil pump, and there is the manifold. So the first thing to do is to get a star drive and remove the manifold. Put the bolt to one side. We'll need a screwdriver. And then you just need to hook this out, because it's pressed into the plastic, and then it's also pressed into the oil tank. So that's the manifold. So getting back to here, the oil pump is pressed up inside that hole there. It's just there. So the oil pump's got a thread in the bottom This is an exhaust bolt, and that should thread in, and it does. It's a blind hole in the bottom of the oil pump, and then what you do is just gently use the case as a fulcrum with a pair of pliers, and it just pulls the oil pump out. There we go. So there's the oil pump, very small. Take the bolt out. Got to keep this scrupulously clean, but because we're using an old body, it's not quite so important. That's the thready bit. You've got a slot here that leads to a hole, and the edge of the slot's got a very slight taper there. That is the oil in, and then the opposite side, you've got another hole which is the oil hole out, and this has got a countersink round it to make it easier to line up with the hole in the plastic case. That's the gear that locates with the worm that we looked at earlier on. So we put that to one side. So what we have here is just here on the bar boss, there's a slot and a hole. That's where the oil comes out. So that hole there meets up with a hole facing forwards in that pump hole. Now I've got a piece of wire here with a small bend on it, very short bend on it, and the bend is facing forwards, and just pressing down, and that's located with the hole. So the hole faces straight forwards. So effectively, when you're putting the pump back in, the output hole, the one with the countersink, needs to be facing directly forwards, that way up, not the other way up. So having cleaned everything out, it's not often these pumps wear out. It's the delivery system that is a problem, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. So I've got the oil hole facing forwards, directly forwards, and the slot is at the back. And then you just pop it back in, and that's it. And there's a natural stop in there, but don't belt it in, just push it in gently. So that's the oil pump. Now on the 017s and 018s there is an oil pump problem, and if I ever get hold of one of those saws again, I will do a video on how to sort out the oil pump problem. But just to allude to it, on those earlier models, the 01s, the case is very similar, except the oil tank and the petrol tank are loose containers. So if you remove the black exoskeleton, the rear handle and the top handle, etc., it allows access to underneath here. This also means removing the carburettor and the fair old few bits, but actually it's not that big a job. So having removed the exoskeleton, you can get to the oil pump delivery pipe. So then you remove the flywheel, and how to remove the flywheel, again, I think it's, can't remember quite, but it may be still 026 MS260 part 3, but it might be part 2. Have a look. You remove the flywheel, and then the oil tank will come out, and you remove the delivery pipe. Well, the delivery pipe is the problem, because unlike this manifold for the 023 MS230. On the 01s, it's just a pipe that just pushes in the hole, in the bottom of the pump hole, and it gets hard. So the thing to do is to remove the pipe, take the tank out, wash the tank out, take the filter out, and I'll show you how to take the filter out on these in a minute. Clean the filter or replace it, but definitely 100% on the 01s replace the pipe. And not with a Mickey Mouse one, get a proper Stihl one, and that should sort your problems out, because then you'll get a good seal between the case and the pipe, and the oil filter will have been cleaned. Because if you've been using bio oil or vegetable oil as chain oil, it can crystallize and start to block the filter up. Or if you've run the saw and the oil cap's flirted off and you've got half a tank full of shavings, you're bound to get, even if you washed it out, you're bound to get some of the filter blocked up. So give it a good clean out, and that'll make a huge amount of difference. So on with removing the oil line. So gently, you don't want to stab this, but just hook the pipe out like that. And there's a bend on this pipe, and the filter is quite large compared to the hole. I think we better just zoom in. So there's the filter. It's quite coarse. I can actually see through the slots. So this is quite clean, but give it a good clean, and there's the pipe. Now it's very important, bear in mind we're not putting this back together for use, but it's very important to keep everything clean here. You don't want muck getting down into the pump. So this then, to put it back in, again it's quite, you've just got to get it right, and then it's got to bend to get into the tank. There we go. And push that back in. Right, the pump's not quite far enough in. That's it. So with all this spotlessly clean, then you can put the manifold back in. Just push that back in a bit more. So we have a spigot here and a spigot there. That one has got an oil, an O-ring round it. So pop that in there. Then it's not that easy to get that next bit in. It doesn't just naturally pop in. You've got to compress that a little bit. There it pops in. And then put the screw back on. So hopefully that's covered oil pumps. And anybody watching this with a problem 017 or 018 may think, I'll have a go at fixing the oil pump. And it's not the oil pump, it's the oil delivery. Next time, on with the rebuild.